Bienvenidos.
Welcome.
This is Learning with Lobos. I'm Paloma.
And I'm Lonnie, and we are education consultants with the Early Childhood Services Center.
And this is a UNM podcast for early childhood.
This is season 2, episode 2, with our guest, Dale Cooperman, and we're going to be talking about mentorship today. Dale, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I have been in a director's role at my preschool for 15 years, in early childhood for approximately 42 years. And from the first day that I walked into a job, I had a mentor, and I realized very early on the importance of a mentor and what they can bring to any professional situation.
Yeah, I love that.
That's
we're
amazing.
so excited to have you today, and I know that you brought a book with us. Can you tell us about this book that you brought?
This is a book that I actually read to my son when he was younger. And it's got a surprise ending, which is what I always thought was the most fun about it. It's about a monster that's coming to get you. He comes across galaxies and he finds a child. At the end of the book, the monster pounces, and it turns out the monster is this little tiny thing, and the boy walks right over him. And it was always fun. The moral of the story was things are always going to be different, and there's always going to be surprise endings, and you should just try something because maybe it's not so bad.
I love that. And sometimes I think it also shows us sometimes things look scary from afar, or you think, oh, I can't do that. There's no way I would be able to do that. And then you're there and you have no option, or you realize, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I like that too, as you're getting closer to it, you realize, hey, I'm bigger than this.
Yeah.
The first time I read it with children this year, because I still spend part of my days with children, at the end they said, but the monster was a baby.
That's
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really great book that you brought, because it's like mentorship means that you are supporting early childhood professionals, because maybe some of this profession is scary. Some of it is maybe looks bigger than you thought it would look. Maybe some of it is intimidating, overwhelming, and so a mentor kind of gives you that perspective and shows you it's not that bad. It's actually only this scary. It's this size. So I love
It's
that.
a baby.
Yeah, this is a baby monster.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Tell us a little bit about what you've done in our community when it comes to mentorship.
Goes back a long way. When I was back east, I got my degrees in a field that I never really used. And when I returned to school at UNM, when the SIMT department was the thing that you did for early childhood, multicultural education, that was the time that UNM and I created this wonderful relationship. I had been teaching for several years, and they sent me student teachers every year. When it was time, they considered me a master teacher. So I was able to use my skills to help teachers get over that intimidation and learn that it's just a baby, and that children are the most forgiving creatures, because they don't know that you've made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say, I'd like to start over, or I made a mistake, it makes you more human, and it teaches a student teacher that it's okay to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
As a teacher, I used to say to my students, make a mistake and put an X on it so you'll remember you made the mistake and you won't make it again. So that's what I used to tell my student teachers. Make the mistake, take notes on it, and just try and think about it differently the next time.
Mm-hmm.
That's really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's what you're saying is children are forgiving.
Yeah. And they don't know the difference. And they're going to love you, especially early childhood. Children love their teachers. And if you show them the respect and the love, you can make as many mistakes as you want. They're not going to know the difference.
Yeah, they spend so much time with their teacher, so they develop this bond. And it's that whole thing of you learn from your mistakes, right? So that lesson of learn from that, and it's going to help you. It's not going to take from you. So that's really cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, too, that message connects to parents as well. Your children, they're going to be forgiving and understanding, too. You're going to make mistakes as a parent.
Yeah, how many people in our field, I don't know if, during trainings, I hear teachers say, I wish I would have known this with my own kids.
Oh,
And they think they made all
the
these
time.
mistakes, but it's like, hey, you still, you're growing, you're learning, you're always going to continue to learn. So that's really cool. My grandma was learning, and when she was 90, she was learning English, So you're always going to continue to learn. So that's really cool.
What I tell the parents sometimes is you're not going to know you messed up until it's too late.
Mm.
So go with your gut and just trust your instincts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, not everyone knows that you, Dale, were my own mentor. I used to work with you, and it was, one of my very early.
I was going to give you some.
So, yeah, it was my very early teaching years. I had just graduated, never been a lead before. You gave me a chance. Well, you gave me a trial. You did. You said, let's give it 2 weeks.
See how you feel.
And it's not a permanent position, but let's see how you do, and then we'll talk. And that whole 2 weeks, I was like, I really hope she likes me. I really hope she likes me. And obviously, it worked out. And yeah, I mean, you were my mentor. You did a lot for me. And I always, to this day, appreciate that. So I love that it's kind of like full circle of like where I am now in this position, and to be able to have you as a guest, it's amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm all grown up. I'm not
we were
20-year-old
having a
anymore.
reflective practice, and we were talking about those individuals that give and that they want people to learn, because there's always those individuals that no, this is mine. It took me forever to learn it, so now you have to. But then you encounter those individuals that, hey, did you finish your class? Let me help you with that.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's so amazing. One of our coworkers just randomly asked me, hey, are you done with that? I'm like, no. And I swear when she was coming, I thought, oh no, she wants to talk and I am so busy. And then when she just started helping me with another part of my job that I had on my list, I thought, wow, what a cool person that just gave,
If you don't have that partnership, you're not gonna ever advance. You're not gonna ever grow professionally, because you're always going to be on guard. You're never going to have that trust in the people you work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you feel the field has changed a lot?
Yes. From my first back east. I mean, when you went to college for teaching, you held your stuff close to the chest. None of our classes were work with a partner and do this together. It was all your own, and you did not share it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was detriment to everybody, because people come up with such good ideas that why can't we all benefit from it? It's not like you're copywriting and stealing an idea.
Exactly. That's true. And we talk about in our trainings with how the importance of teachers talking to each other as well, not just the facilitator, but what they gain from each other, and building that community and getting each other's, oh, I went through that actually, and this is what I did. So.
And that's what you're doing. You're networking with all of these other directors in our community, and not saying, this is mine, I'm going to keep my secrets of my success to myself, but instead you've been sharing it over so many years. And, that's why we all kind of know each other, right? Like we're all are more of a web now at this point, like even as consultants, as directors. If I say, yeah, I know Dale too, I know her, everyone, because we're trying to expand and be there for each other, which I think is honestly so exciting, because I do remember it being like that in some of the centers that I worked at, where it was like, hey, do you want to combine and do something with the kids? And they were like, what? No, like, no. And it was just always like, well, why not? We could be doing great things together. And I remember feeling that now that you've mentioned it. So
I feel like that there's so much to say for modeling. My teachers know that I'm on 2 networks, a local network and a national network. And I'm the first person to say to my teachers, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me reach out to my network and see if other people have dealt with this, and see what we can come back with and make it our own.
Oh, how cool.
You have to model. You always have to be able to model. You always have to be teacher as learner. You can't ever present yourself as the person who knows everything.
Yeah.
Because people lose respect for you with that.
it's not authentic.
Well, I said this to one of my teachers yesterday. As soon as I feel like I know everything, then it's time to leave. And then I walked out of the room and came back in, and I said, I can't even remember my coffee cup. So I still don't know everything.
Oh my gosh. Well, and Dale, I know that you used to be a kindergarten teacher.
Yes.
So how does that unique perspective of being a kindergarten teacher, then becoming a director, how does that change the way that you have seen teachers, new teachers, directors, all the people you're supporting over the years? Has that changed the way that you do things?
I thought about that a lot when I took the position as director, because I was the kindergarten teacher and still did kindergarten teaching and the directorship for a couple of years.
Right.
And I felt that once I stepped out of the classroom, I could be the best advocate for teachers because I know what it's like to be in the trenches. I know what we need to feel successful, to be successful. And you also have to be in an institution that's a bigger institution. You are the buffer between the powers that be and the teachers, and you have to be there to support them and advocate for them and give them what they need to be successful. So yeah, being a teacher and then stepping out and supporting teachers makes me feel like I understand what their needs could be. I understand what their hesitancy could be. So yeah, I do everything I can to provide that support.
Yeah, I like that because sometimes we have come across, managers that don't have the experience of what they're managers of, and then it feels that disconnect. So in this case, you are actually very connected because you were there, you did it.
Yeah.
You've been there, done that, you understand completely.
Back to the university, the ivory tower scholars, the professors who have never been in a classroom,
Exactly.
writing all this research that's totally irrelevant because they've never been in the trenches.
Yeah, and that still happens. I mean, I know that there's professors that are teaching, but they aren't teachers themselves. They're just, lecturers. They come in and they support, but that's not really where they're at. And so that's a weird dynamic. And so it's great that that our community has someone like you that's supporting locally and nationally so that you can get ideas from all places too, which I appreciate. Yeah.
I just think that I still have so much more to learn about the best way to present myself and the best way to support my teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have more questions than answers because if somebody else says that they're presenting to the board, my first question is, well, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? What's the purpose? What's the objective? The objective is always to support, to bring it back. All right, so how do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to a conference next week and I'm taking a leadership track because even though I've been in this for 15 years, I still feel like there's so much that I can do to bring back and then delegate to members of my staff. Like, I see that you have talent in this space. Do you want to take this on? Do you want to be responsible for this?
That's
Do you
really
want
cool.
to be a real partner in all of this? So I'm just not the one saying, well, I'm the boss,
Mm-hmm.
even though my teachers call me the big guns.
I like that, the big guns.
But I think that's more because of trust.
Yeah.
Because I know someone, I know someone and their sisters, and they have the one sister. I can't say what they call her, but it's basically they're saying she's the one that will have the answers or that we go to or that. And it sounds like it might be a bad thing, but no, it's because that respect and that, hey, I know I can go to this person and I can count on them and they'll help me and they'll have my back and no judgment, right? So
yeah, but
that's
you know what too, you actually made me think of this may be random and this may show that I have kids at home, but Encanto, where the sister, the big sister, where she's feels like there's so much pressure on her and she's gonna break because everyone goes to her for everything. They expect her to be the one to solve all the problems. You are that for your little village, but that's why you're in a network, because you are also now in another village where you're getting support. It's not all on you because you can ask for support, you can ask for help, you can lean on other directors in those networks. So that balance prevents that.
Well, it takes me, I think I stepped up much more during COVID. That really taught me a lot because we were one of the schools that opened up in August. And that whole summer I took writing protocols and processes and getting ideas from my national network.
Mm.
And every document that I wrote, I sent it to my teachers before it went to any of the leadership. Because I said, can we do this? Should we do this? What do I need to do to change it? How are you buying into this? How are we going to do this as a team?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we created the documents that we felt would work, then I handed it off to leadership and said, this is what we think we can do. So, you have to step back. You don't always have to be the one in charge.
Mm-hmm. And you go in the classroom, you're in the classroom.
Yes.
So that's also something that sometimes when you move up, okay, I have so much administrative work that I can't, and I'm sure you do, but you go in there and, my background is in sociology, and I always tell my coworkers, I tell Lonnie, you know more than me. And I have coworkers that are like, no, you're so smart. I didn't say I wasn't smart. I'm great at other things that you're probably not. But what I'm saying is that this is your thing. I approach it in a different way. So I try to get as involved as I can with the toy library. We used to have a thing called the Paloma play groups. So we would have parents come over and we would play. And I do want to do things that get me closer to being, in the classroom, because I feel like I'm missing that piece. So I don't pretend that I know, or that I go to my colleagues and ask questions. And hey, when you did that, and like I said, I have the respect of when I met Lonnie, she had her master's. I'm like, wow, she is so young and she has her master's, and so she was just ready to, I'm ready for what's coming. So that's really cool. But it's good to know and be in the classroom, never lose that, that connection, so that you can have those conversations and that bond and that connection with your teachers. So.
And it's true. She would just pop in and sit down for circle time sometimes. And at first I'd be like, oh my gosh, she's in circle time. I gotta not
Got
make a
nervous.
mistake. I'd be like, what are you doing in here? Are you testing me? But then after a while I realized she's just trying to be a part of the community, checking on us. The kids loved her. They want to sit down and have her join on this book, And so it took a while to realize that the reasoning behind it was not to be like this supervisor watching, but to just be a part of this school family that we're creating. So it is true. I will fact check you that you did go into the classroom, and you still do, and I love that.
That's awesome.
You mentioned COVID. Obviously, that's a very unique challenge. As a director, as educators, that was a crazy time, and we had to do a lot of problem solving and trying to figure out how to continue keeping those doors open. But what other unique challenges have you faced, and how have you overcome them?
Life gets in the way sometimes. I mean, you have to always be able to step back. I always say I leave my stuff in the car. Because it's going to be waiting for me.
It's still there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have to bring it in. I feel like when I walk in the door, you have to be present.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm wallowing in my own, there's a Yiddish word, mishigas, your stuff. If you're wallowing in your own stuff, you can't be the support. You can't be there for the teachers. You can't be there for the families. You can't be there for the children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I want to be able to be present, to be a support for this bubble that we live in, this beautiful little community that we've created. Because to me, it's all about establishing the connections and the relationships.
Right.
Because that then supports the children as they grow up and they feel safe. Because if you don't feel safe, you're not going to learn. And I want the parents to know that their children are safe, because if they are tense when they drop their child off, their child feels that.
Yeah.
So everybody has to be able to breathe when they walk in, say their goodbyes, and then we go off and we do the best we can every day. Some days are just better than others. Some days are worse than others. It's all still, it's on a continuum, and we just keep working at it.
I used to tell my teachers that all the time from Powerful Interaction, leave the static, I would say on the tree. The tree outside, leave the static. It's going to be there waiting for you when you go out. So you either worry about it while you're doing other things that you need to be present for, or you're worrying double. So might as well worry when you get out. Pick up your static from the tree on your way out, and then, then the rest you have to deal with it. But
the trick with the child was she used to come in very grumpy. She was not a morning person. We used to go to the back door and open the door and tell the grump to wait outside.
Oh, that's adorable. I love that.
That's
awesome. I love that. That is so cute.
When you mentioned something about being safe, I used to tell, especially new programs, I had an analogy. I said, if I was here pointing you with a gun and told you need to learn everything, all the procedures, everything that you have to do, all the requirements, learn them by the time I come back, or learn them while I have this gun pointed at you, you wouldn't be able to learn because you were scared, your safety. So I used to use that analogy until one day I went to a home center and I used the analogy, and the husband was there just watching, and he tells me, I'll just take out my own gun. that's not what I was. I'm like, okay, that's
This was a
really,
metaphor.
that's a really bad, yeah, that's a really bad metaphor. So after that, I'm not using that, but it was the best way to explain if you're scared, you won't be able to do anything, not even make the proper decision, and so, but I'll have to think of something different to say.
Well, I use, kind of a milder analogy with teachers when we're talking about certain things, like when let go of that control, right? Like they don't have to sit crisscross applesauce. I always say, what if we're in this meeting and I'm making you, Dale, sit exactly how I want, and you have to stay that way the whole time? And so I kind of, do that same thing where I'm trying to give them that perspective, and, but they have to make those decisions. I always tell them, you can hear what I have to say, I will tell you what's best practice, and I will justify it. But at the end of the day, you're going to decide if you agree with me or not, and if you want to make a change or not. And if I come back and you're not changing it, that's on you, and I'm not going to judge you, because you have that opportunity now that you have the information, the research, the facts. And so I always leave it up to them. I'm like, I'm not going to force you to change. Like, I'm not going to force you to, let kids sit in a different way. But now you know why I'm telling you should let them sit in another way.
So years ago, I read some research when I was still in school, and it changed the way I viewed education as a whole. And it was always nice to be able to be reflective that way, and I think I still am with most things. But it was by a woman who wrote a paper about second language learners in Harlem, New York. And there was a phrase, having confidence in your own competence and letting children take the lead. And it was an epiphany for me. It was like, I don't have to control every single facet of this classroom. I don't know what they're interested in. I don't know what these kids are interested in. Now I don't know what these teachers are interested in. How can I give them the power to lead the way and show me what I need to do to support them? So it's the same as, I treat the teachers the same as I treat the children. Step back and say, show me.
Yeah.
Show me.
That's amazing.
I love that.
And it's definitely something. It changed the way I did assessments. It changed the way I approached curriculum, and it changed the way I taught. And I brought that with me when I took this.
Yeah.
Took this whole project on. This little baby monster. I think it's a really good time. Maybe we can see if there's any questions in the field.
Yeah, check out.
Alrighty. So, looks like we have 2 questions.
All right.
Alrighty. Let's see. The first one is from Jennifer. She wants to know, she just opened her own school. It's very overwhelming, and she doesn't know if she's making the right decisions, and wants to know if there's any advice for her.
I would say the first thing is to get involved with your local network and ask a million questions. Create your team. Create your people, create your tribe. Even within the ECMN network, there are 3 or 4 of us that still talk to each other via email, via phone, talk about policy change, talk about this is going on with a family, what would you do? Have you ever had to deal with this? You don't have to recreate the wheel. We have done this before. There are people out there to help you. So find your network.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great advice.
Yeah, you don't have to think of everything on your own. If you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, then reach out, and we'll post the some information as well on that network, so that way if you're watching, if you're listening to us, then you know how to maybe you'll get a connection with Dale in another way after this podcast.
And like our previous, or not our previous episode, Lonnie, but one of our episodes with Shannon, she brought a book that said, just ask. Just ask, because we're sometimes afraid of, I'm going to sound stupid, or I can't ask. How am I going to ask Dale with her experience? And then, why not?
And that's the other book that I don't have a copy of anymore, because it was also a book that I read to my son that I sent him when he had his son.
Oh.
It was the Berenstein Bears bike lesson, and the phrase in it is the dad, he keeps messing up. He keeps doing things wrong, and he turns around and he says, now this is what you should never do, now let this be a lesson to you. So that was another thing that I did with my student teachers. That was another thing I do with new teachers. You can look at somebody and try to emulate them, but try to be your own person. Sometimes the biggest lesson that you can have when you are observing somebody else is, that's not me, I would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
So figure out who you are and be comfortable with that. Be honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think those are great lessons. You're talking about, one, you don't have to be alone. You don't have to recreate the wheel, but you also don't have to be a carbon copy of someone else, of your mentor. You can take some of that. It's kind of like, right, your school is Reggio inspired. We talk about Reggio inspired. There's no such thing as having another exact Reggio school here in America. We're inspired by it. So you can be inspired by your mentor. I'm Dale inspired. I'm so corny these days.
No, that's okay.
Okay, we have another question.
Very happy.
And it's so true. This is anonymous. I recently took over as director at this school. I want to change a lot of things, but do not want the educators resenting me because they like how the old director did things. How can I make this place my own without causing my teachers to be uncomfortable? That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. My first response is don't change anything for at least a year. Observe. Ask questions. What did you like? If we could change anything, what would that be? How would you like this classroom to feel if you had more say in it? But I would say for the first year, don't change anything. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can definitely tweak it to make it yours. It took me a very long time to create something that I felt not necessarily in my image, but that conveyed the vision that I had. And I don't think you can have an accurate sense of what your vision can be for the school until you get to know the children, the families, the teachers, just the physical space that you are living in every day.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time. There's no rush.
I love that.
Kind of like a presenter knowing their audience, right? You have to, before you know your approach or...
And you come in and change things. You are not showing any respect for the teachers who have been extremely successful in this space for a long time before you came.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
That's
We've
a very
been
good
talking
point.
about relationships. We've been talking about trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go in and you just kind of bulldoze everything, they're not going to have trust for you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so maybe you might want to prioritize their comfort level more than your own for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it might not be exactly the style you want, or it might not be the way that you want to do things, but if the relationship is first and building that trust is first, then you might just be a little uncomfortable for a while, but it's worth it in the long run to have that strong relationship with the teachers, because then they'll buy in
You
to
have
what
to
you're
say
going
to
to
them,
change.
I'm here to learn from you.
Yeah, I love that. That's
like
great
that.
advice.
Mm-hmm. I love
So over the years, Dale, you've mentored different directors, you've worked with different directors. Have you seen any positive outcomes come from that? And how does that make you feel like in continuing this journey as a mentor?
Selfishly, I sometimes say that I've learned more from them than they've
Oh.
learned from me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a fresh look at things. There's always the question, well, what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking to somebody that's new in the field or somebody that's experienced in the field. But you should never ask that question unless you really want to know the answer.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I love that. Yeah, I know. I don't know where I saw it recently. It had nothing to do with work, but I'm like, yep, that's a good point. You don't ask if you don't want
So
to.
how has it changed? I mean, it keeps evolving because the world keeps evolving. And
Yeah.
we're approaching early childhood in a very different way than we did when I first began in the field.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I think, in some ways before my time, I was always an emergent type of person because I always felt like there was more that I could get from somebody else than I could give.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a sharing of ideas. So what's changed? I think the whole idea that we are here for each other now, that the whole field has become much more of a partnership.
Oh, interesting.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like you said, you still have a small little group where you guys continue to reach out to each other and gain support even after all this time. Because maybe a teacher or a new director you work with might think, oh, Dale doesn't need any more ideas or support, but that's not true. We're
not
lifelong learners as educators, consultants, directors, whatever role we're in early childhood. We always have room to grow. And I wish that there was like a network for consultants. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we could like join a network of consultants, because obviously we have our organization.
That's
I
a
know,
good
right?
idea.
Inspiration, light bulb. You have to put a little light bulb in editing.
I do. I'll do the.
You know,
what I
it's
give you.
teacher as learner. Always, you have to. That phrase has always resonated with me. And there's also something that I learned recently about the kind of leader that I am that I never realized.
Mm-hmm.
Because the parents will come to me and say, "Oh, you run such a beautiful school. It's your school. You have such a beautiful school." And I've always said, I could stand on my head, but if the teachers aren't with me, if they don't have the ownership of it, it wouldn't matter. So tell the teachers that because it's their school.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a phrase for that, right, that I never knew. It's called leading from behind.
Oh,
yes,
I've never heard that before. And it's like, yeah, I just push them out in front and give them the accolades and give them the power. You know, if a parent comes to me and says, "Oh my God, I love you so much. I did this." Well, what did your child's teacher do? You know, so it's much more important to me that the teachers are out front. You know, and I'm quiet about it. I don't make the teachers uncomfortable about it, but that's the way I approach it.
You know, Lonnie said something earlier that I feel about people that I consider mentors, but specifically a person that she did, and you just said that you do. If you see that somebody has a talent or something, a skill specific and you push him towards that. So you're able to see that, and then, which might be uncomfortable for the person, you know, like how we pushed you to be on this podcast, you know, but pushes.
Very uncomfortable.
Well, you're doing great. But being able to see that in a person and pushing them and if they are able to find a path somewhere else, also pushing them for that, which I've noticed that great mentors, that's what they do. They don't, because if you lose someone that's working great, it's terrible, right? But if they're going to build something or do something that also is going to be great, whether it's for them, for the field, so that's really cool. I really like that. I can see now with things that you're saying about how she talks about you. I can see it, Dale. I can see it, and it's really cool and really great. And I am happy that you're out here for teachers and that you're willing to share all your expertise. So that's really cool.
You're taking this approach of like letting them shine. It makes me think of like, you know, process art. When I talk to teachers about, I always tell them, don't make a model or don't do it for them. You know, Miss Lonnie, can you draw this horse for me? I would always say, you know, how about you try? Let's go look for a book. Let's go look for an actually, you know, little play horse in the manipulatives, and then you can see it, because you want them to be able to do it. And so it's the same thing here, is like, you're there, but you're not going to do it for them. You're not gonna, you know, hold their hand and do it all for them, and then it's like, what's the point? They haven't learned. So that leading from behind is kind of like that. You're here, you're not alone in it, but also I'm back here.
Not but.
Yeah, and I'm back here. Which
Important.
I love. Yeah. And I think that's a really great approach. Do you feel like you have a different approach, or feel like one or the other is more challenging, like mentoring educators because they're just supporting one classroom, versus directors have to support like an entire school, the families, multiple teachers, multiple classrooms?
I haven't mentored a lot of directors. I'm definitely in partnership with directors. So I can't say that I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And that's another great thing. You know, when somebody asks you a question, say, I don't know.
Yeah.
The power of saying, I don't know, let's find out, or I'll
A
find out.
kindergarten student told me years ago, just Google it.
Yeah, come on, just Google it.
That's funny.
Hello.
I told my nephew something, and he said something. I said, we don't have that, baby. Just order it from Amazon. Oh, okay.
Easy.
Now,
There's so many pieces to it. There are just so many pieces to it, and you don't necessarily feel like you're mentoring somebody when you're in a classroom and a child is having a meltdown, and you just take the child to support the child.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess you're mentoring if the teacher is observing you, but you're really just there
for support
to mentor the child,
Oh.
to give them, so what else could we do next time? And I see that you were angry, and it's okay to be angry, but you know, it's okay to not feel like you did a great job. So what about next time? So it's the same thing as a teacher watching that, are they hearing that?
Right.
So am I mentoring them in a way because I'm showing them a strategy to maybe deal with the child?
Yeah, no, that's great. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a good idea. And I think too, you know, yes, I hope that a bunch of people join some local networking after this. But I also think it's important for educators and directors to visit other schools. Like, try
Yes.
and observe, call and say, hey, are you okay if I check this
visit?
out? Yeah, come
Yeah.
visit.
Yeah.
Because then you can see, firsthand, like some things you either don't want to do, like you were saying earlier,
lesson.
or things that inspire you and things you want to take. And that's just not for our local community, but if you have an opportunity to go visit a school in another state, that would be amazing.
That would
See how they run things, how they, what kind of Reggio inspired stuff do they do there, or how do they handle mixed age classrooms, or how do they do Montessori. Like, I think it's a benefit to kind of try and look at other perspectives around our community and around the United States, if we're able to, if we have those opportunities, take them.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you have to, we did a lot of research on other toy libraries when we were going to open the toy library, and just knowing that they're out there, a lot of them charge, but they have to maintain,
Yeah.
even if it's just a little bit like a regular library. But you have to see what other people are doing. We get all the time, we get people, can we go into the library and check it out and ask you questions? And we could say no, but why? We
What would
want
be the point? That's what it's here for.
we want toy
Right.
libraries out here for the community, for as a resource. So that's really cool. Yeah.
I'm really impressed with it. I'm not leaving right after this is over. I'm going to go and check this place out.
Oh, we
It's
can
very
sign you
cool.
up and you can
Yes.
check out stuff.
I know. I was just saying, please, come visit your local toy lending library. They are amazing resources for educators, for parents, grandparents, anyone that, maybe you want to come and see what there is. We have it organized by, age groups. We have it organized by topics. There's some really amazing resources and toys and cool stuff here. And I think that you should, try and ask. If you don't know what kind of resources are out there in your local community, ask. If you didn't know there was a local, mentorship connection, ask. Ask your consultant, or ask, email us with our email and say, hey, I would like to know more opportunities for networking, or for, things like the toy lending library, because we definitely have a good list going. So make sure you ask.
100%.
Just ask.
Just ask. There it is again. And Dale, I wanted to ask you, you're Jewish, correct?
I am.
I wanted to ask you, how do you integrate your culture and your culture and your values into your teaching? Like, how do you balance the diverse cultures from everyone else, whether it's with students or with teachers that you mentor?
So when families come to visit the school, I never ask them if they are Jewish, because one of our taglines is all faiths and families welcome.
Oh, nice.
And it's very important to me that, yes, we're a Jewish preschool, whatever that may mean, but it doesn't have to be heavy-handed. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. So I ask parents if they know that this is a Jewish preschool and if they have any questions for me. And usually I will say, I am not here to proselytize.
Mhm.
If you are Jewish or if you are not, at that point I still don't know because they haven't told me. It is not my job. There's a fine line between education and indoctrination.
Mm.
And it is not my job to indoctrinate anybody. Whether you worship or not, where you worship or not, it is not my job to tell you how to do this. So, yes, we do embed Jewish values, but the Jewish values are being the best little human we can be,
Just
paying it forward, being kind to each other, being kind to animals,
Mhm.
taking care of the world. A basic tenet of Judaism is leaving the world a little better than how you found it,
Oh,
repairing the world. And I think that families hear that and they say, well, that sounds fine. I mean, and I say we do observe Jewish holidays, but in a very gentle way. The Jewish holidays, some of them are built on persecution and war and killing, and obviously we're not going to go there. But we look at Hanukkah, and with 2-year-olds through 5-year-olds, we can look at the symbols, the traditions, the food,
Mm-hmm.
and have some fun with it.
Yeah.
The older kids can talk about a group of people, they were soldiers, but we don't call them soldiers, called the Maccabees, who were brave and made good choices. Well, I mean, that's, I think the essence of it is being developmentally appropriate and just helping them understand that they are responsible for themselves and for the world, and they can make a difference. When we have sock donations, I always tell parents to teach your children that they can make a difference. And that's a huge Jewish value.
Wow.
So that's pretty much as far as we go. We have Shabbat together on Friday mornings. The whole school comes together. We have families come in. We say the blessings. We sing songs. We have challah, which is that beautiful braided bread that
And the green chili challah that they make is
delicious.
fire. Okay, with some cream cheese.
So
It's
it's
so good.
some New Mexican was incorporated
Yes.
then.
we have volunteer bakers that come in on Friday mornings at 6 a.m. and bake
It's so
challahs.
good.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
Oh, that's
I miss that green chili
amazing.
challah.
So it's a
Order
very
it.
gentle, it's very, yes, we say blessings in Hebrew, but because we're grateful, not because you're Jewish and you have to.
Right.
And if you light candles, it's a beautiful way to, it's just bringing beauty into the world. And one of the books I wrote,
Yes. Yes.
is about Shabbat being a sensory experience. You see it, you smell it, you taste it, you feel it.
Oh wow! This is a children's book.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
You know, I don't know if I say ashamed, but I learned about the Maccabees and some of the things that you're saying through the show Friends, while Ross was teaching his child
Right.
about, So, but that is amazing. Then that you have books also that you publish, and then you share this work as well and these values, which
Curriculum, I've put all kinds of things out into the world with a co-writer.
and all these values is like what you were saying is things that I grew up with. I grew up Catholic, but I grew up with values. Most of the things that you said exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you want your little human to be the best little human you can be. And you don't have to go home and light candles on Friday nights. You don't have to do any of the Jewish quote unquote pieces, but you can still talk about, were you kind today?
Yeah.
And did you share with a friend? And did you help somebody? And did you talk about cleaning up the litter around the school? Did you pick something up that you didn't have to pick up? Did you do something to help the world?
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that, we can take that back to our main conversation of just, are you leaving the world a better place? Are you leaving this classroom a better place? Are you doing the best that you can? Are they going to be forgiving and understanding if you make mistakes? Yes. It's okay. We're learning together. We're lifelong learners. I think it really connects well with that episode with Shannon in our season finale where it's just humanity and connection. That's really what this is, with a little bit of support and, reaching out to your community and just all of us being there. We're like this little early childhood village, and it takes a village.
A healthy village.
A healthy village, which she always says, and I love that. And
Yes,
I
it's
think
true.
it's true. It comes back in almost every episode because it's true. You need a healthy village to function. And, I did bring a book here that I just wanted to mention one quote from it. This is called The New Teacher Book by Rethinking Schools. And in this book, it talks about this quote: "I discovered my own power to trip and fall and get up and get up and get up," which I just love, because that's really what we've been talking about.
Mistakes.
You have to hone in that power and that confidence to become the teacher you're going to become, and you will fall, but you will get up and get up and get up.
Yeah, it reminds me, Lonnie and I also talked about in a previous episode of, they say you get W's or L's. And I told Lonnie you get wins or lessons, because it's not a loss. You had a lesson out of so it's, if you approach it that way, then everything is going to be a positive thing, even if it's negative, so.
And I wrote another book also.
Oh, tell us.
My goal is to have this doing chapters with my teachers. I've started reading it, The Importance of Being Little.
Wow.
And it's wonderful because it really is a very practical discussion of what preschool is and what you can bring to it and what children really need from a preschool.
I love that.
The healthy preschool.
Wow, that's
A
it.
healthy
Yeah, there you
preschool,
go.
A healthy village,
If,
leaving this world a little bit better.
Yeah, you kind of answered, but I thought, and I know this is a difficult question, if you can leave just one impact, do you have something narrow that you would want to leave as an impact for this this profession, or the people that you've mentored?
Stay a learner. Don't be afraid to tell your story. That's part of every interview. For families and for aspiring teachers, I want to hear your story.
Yeah.
How did you come to where you are? Don't ever lose your story, but learn from it and leave the world a little better than how you found it every day.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I love this.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dale, for
Thank
being
you.
our guest. This was amazing. Such a beautiful topic. I think it was very uplifting as well as realistic. And I hope that our listeners and or watchers were able to take something from this today. So thank you so much.
Thank
We
you for
appreciate
inviting me.
Oh, thank you. No, we appreciate it. This was great. We can keep going. So
I
it's,
know, right?
you know,
Let's just keep
maybe
going.
maybe we'll see you again.
Yes, maybe you'll be able to
Now I
come
feel
back.
a little less nervous.
There you
Yay! Well, this was Learning with Lobos.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Adios.
Adios. Oh, shalom.
Hey, shalom.